The Allen Line Company appreciates all of the dedicated carriers it takes to move loads across the U.S. Stay safe.
OOIDA, representing America's truckers since 1973, presents Landline Now with your host, Mark Redding.
As Connecticut looks to technology to address the truck parking issue, researchers at the University of Connecticut are looking to go beyond state lines in hopes it will spark investment in parking expansion. We speak with those researchers about their plans. Another successful SuperRigs is in the books, and this year's winner says he just went to have fun because it was in his own backyard. We speak with him about taking home the grand prize and what it means to claim a spot in next year's Shell Rotella calendar. And finally, as we reported last week, New York's governor has indefinitely postponed the congestion pricing plan that was scheduled to go into effect at the end of the month in New York City's central business district. I'll get some insight into how this happened and what it means more broadly from Bryce Mungen of OOIDA's Washington, D.C. office. But first, the news with Scott Thompson.
Thanks, Mark. Make it 9 straight weeks of declines in diesel prices. The Energy Information Administration's weekly report shows a national average dipping nearly 7 more cents last week to $3.65 a gallon. That's the lowest it's been since January of 2022. Prices down in all 10 regions, EIA tracks, led by an 8-cent drop in the Midwest. Over the past 2 months, the average has dropped more than 40 cents on the EIA survey. Meanwhile, more of the same this week, according to the latest data from ProMiles.com. The Tuesday morning average settled in at $3.74 a gallon, down 4.5 cents from the same day last week. Like with the EIA survey, all 10 regions in the ProMiles report were showing price drops. Another milestone reached in the Key Bridge collapse recovery process. The Army Corps of Engineers says the Fort McHenry Federal Channel has been reopened and restored to its regular operational dimensions. What that means is that commercial ships can now move through the Port of Baltimore without restriction, as they did before the disaster. The feat comes 11 weeks after the collapse of the Francis Scott Key Bridge. Over that time, crews have been clearing about 5,000 tons of wreckage from the Patapsco River, and after that, certifying that the area was safe for transit. As for the Key Bridge, that's going to take some time. Officials previously stated they're aiming to rebuild the bridge by 2028. A bipartisan bill aimed at simplifying the security clearance process for people like truck drivers is one of the hottest bills in Congress. 2 more members of the House have signed on to support H.R. 5840, also known as the Transportation Security Screening Modernization Act. Representatives Mike Collins of Georgia and Hillary Schulten of Michigan are the bill's 46th and 47th co-sponsors. The bipartisan bill is aimed at current TSA policies, which often require separate applications for required credentials, like the Transportation Worker Identification Credential and hazardous materials endorsements. That's despite TSA already conducting a security threat assessment for each program. The bill would standardize and streamline the process. There's also a Senate version. It currently has 5 co-sponsors. Interstate 205 in Washington state was shut down for hours on Monday following a police chase and standoff that involved a stolen semi. The Multnomah County Sheriff's Office says it started in Oregon, where the 39-year-old suspect stole a 2022 International cab over from Night Transportation. Police located the truck and began pursuit, which crossed state lines into Washington. The suspect hit several cars during the chase, which continued despite spike strips being used and the tires of the truck deflating. A little more than an hour after it started, the truck came to a stop on I-205 and a standoff began. About an hour later, the suspect left the truck and was arrested. And an hour after that, the highway was reopened to traffic. The suspect will be extradited to Multnomah County to face charges. 9 people are headed to federal prison for their role in a drug trafficking scheme that used commercial trucks. In a news release, the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Middle District of Florida said they were sentenced earlier this month after all being found guilty or pleading guilty. The operation involved cocaine and meth spanning from Central Florida to Arizona and California. The drugs were shipped in commercial trucks from Mexico. The prison sentences range from 2.5 years up to 16. A truck driver convicted of setting multiple Swift transportation trailers on fire in a fit of retribution is headed to prison. VRL Precup was convicted in March on 6 counts of arson for setting 6 trailers on fire at 5 different locations in California. Precup was sentenced to 10 years and 1 month in prison and ordered to pay about $650,000 in restitution. He's also facing charges in New Mexico and Arizona for setting fire to at least 18 other Swift trailers in those states, some of them with drivers still in the trucks. Nobody was hurt. Prosecutors say Precup's motivation was revenge. He used to work as a truck driver for Swift, which had cooperated years ago in a criminal investigation that sent Precup to prison. Those of you waiting for work on Interstate 40 between Tennessee and North Carolina to be done will have to wait a bit longer. The North Carolina DOT says a construction project there has been delayed due to, quote, unforeseen circumstances. That means traffic on the roughly 2-mile stretch of I-40 at the border will stay down to 1 lane in each direction until the end of this month at least, the way it's been since November of 2023. All lanes of traffic were scheduled to open up last month. If you live or do business in New Jersey, you've only got a few more days to let the state know how you feel about the overall truck parking situation. The state DOT launching 2 online surveys, one for short-haul drivers and one for long-haul drivers, both seeking feedback on how to improve truck parking in the Garden State as part of a broader study on the issue. Officials will take the responses and use them to develop solutions and policies on truck parking. Janice Marino-Doyle of the New Jersey Department of Transportation's Office of Freight Planning says the responses they get will be used to formulate a plan.
The survey responses we've received so far indicate that the problem is serious, but we want to hear from as many drivers as we can to make sure that we're capturing all that specific information. We want to, and input possible solutions. All the data we will get to see where those parking issues are occurring, through the whole state, where additional space is needed, how many spots are estimated, what's happening in those designated areas. We also want to conduct. We've also conducted interviews across a cross-section of stakeholders, including trucking companies and industry groups. And we're going to take all that information and help us to estimate how many more spaces are needed and where they best would be placed, and the impact and what other strategies we need to look at to make the most, provide the best solution.
The survey is open through June 16th. It only takes a few minutes and responses are anonymous. For a link, check out landlinenow.com. And finally, voting is now open for the Women in Trucking Association's Top Companies for Women to Work in Transportation contest. The annual list honors the companies that have a corporate culture that's supportive of gender diversity, flexibility in hours and work requirements, competitive compensation, career advancement opportunities, and more. The Owner-Operator Independent Drivers Association is one of more than 140 companies and organizations voters can cast a ballot for. Voting is open until June 28th. We've got a link to this one also at landlinenow.com. The top 30 companies that generate the highest number of votes will be acknowledged as the Elite 30 and will be recognized on stage at the 2024 Accelerate Conference and Expo in November. That's Landline Now News for today. I'm Scott Thompson.
Thanks, Scott. Congratulations to Dale Hadland of Beachville, Ontario. He's received the OOIDA Safe Driving Award for 37 years of safe, accident-free driving. That's the equivalent of a car driver going 278 years without causing a single accident. The OOIDA Safe Driving Award program is sponsored by Shell Rutella. Marty Ellis and OOIDA's tour truck, The Spirit of the American Trucker, are at the Petro Truck Stop in Carlisle, Pennsylvania. That's at exit 52 on I-81 and exit 226 on I-76. Stop in, say hi to Marty, and join OOIDA for a $10 discount. Next, Tyson Fisher talks with Yukon researchers about their new parking app and what they hope it leads to. Ashley Blackford has a conversation with the winner of this year's SuperRigs competition, and I'll cover the postponement of New York City's congestion pricing plan with Bryce Mungen of OOIDA. I'm Mark Reddick, and this is Landline Now.
Thanks for listening. Be sure to like and subscribe. If you want more content, go to landline.media to get updated news, information, and archived editions of our show. Once again, that's landline.media.
Every year, 28 million people are trafficked globally. The Your Roads, Their Freedom campaign seeks to raise awareness in the transport industry. Truck and bus drivers, be vigilant on the roads. If you see something suspicious, text 233-733 or be free.
Are you tired of the IRS following you around like a dark cloud? Call 888-557-4020 and get your life back.
Firestone tires are for more of everything, with more durability for more miles and more confidence in your fleet. Firestone's tested tires help fleets save with value where it matters most. Learn more at bridgestonenationalfleet.com/4moremiles.
It's tested and proven. Burn 2.1% less fuel when you balance all wheel ends with Centromatic. Call 800-523-8473 to get the OOIDA discount.
Landline Now, welcome back. Have you ever run into a problem and thought, there must be an app for that? Well, researchers at the University of Connecticut are working on creating an app to let drivers know where parking is available in Connecticut. Landline Magazine's Tyson Fisher recently spoke with Dr. Eric Jackson and Dr. Mohammed Razir Rahman Shone about what the truck parking project includes and how it may apply to the greater Northeast region where parking is scarce.
To talk about the truck parking app, it looks like the university's, it's called the Connecticut Transportation and Safety Research Center, has received, it looks like nearly $2 million in funding from the US DOT, FMCSA, and the state DOT to develop an app for truck parking. So from what I understand, this is a 3-year pilot project. So what does this project entail?
Sure. So I'll kick it off and then turn it over to Shaun. So the goal of the project is first to identify where truck parking exists within the state, creating that inventory. The Connecticut DOT has already started that with their freight plan. They created an inventory of where parking exists. And then we're going to kind of develop and go forward in terms of trying to produce a data system that would allow kind of real-time parking accessibility or real-time parking information for truckers as they're coming through the state. And maybe Shaun can go into a little more detail on what that may entail.
We're enriching the data by collecting data information like the amenities available, number of parking spots available, and all other information regarding those parking locations. Once that is done, then we will identify a corridor within Connecticut to implement a ITS infrastructure to collect truck parking information in real time and then provide this information to the truckers via a mobile app or the dynamic master signs within the state.
Gotcha. So I'm guessing then, just based on the limited data that is available, that this app would pretty much include mostly just publicly available truck parking, like state-owned rest areas. Is that pretty much what the focus is going to be on?
Yes. So the way we propose this project is we will develop these truck parking app for selected facilities. So, for example, a couple of facilities where we'll collect this data and then publish this data to the truckers in real time. So at the beginning of this app, so it won't include all the parking locations in Connecticut, but we'll develop the system to publish this information to the trucker. Then later on, this can be expanded to include all public parking locations within Connecticut.
All right. So I read that your team will also inventory the supply of public and privately available truck parking. How will that data be collected, especially when it comes to the private truck parking? So how will that data be collected, and then how will it then be used?
So what we did is we enriched the data by looking at the Google Street View, latest Google Street View images, and identified what are the informations that we can collect from different sources and added more informations to it. So that's how we are actually enriching that data set so that we can use this as a base data set when we will develop these parking app.
And we've also worked with a company called Atri. Atri collects GPS tracking data of trucks. And what we're taking that data and we're analyzing that data to try and figure out GPS location-wise, where are trucks parking? And then we're trying to develop these hotspots of, all right, we know there's a group of trucks parking here. What is at that location? Is it a private lot? Is it a public lot? Is it an on-ramp? Is it an off-ramp? We're trying to really understand where truckers are being forced to park as their hours of service come up, and then trying to understand, we're merging in some crash data with that as well to understand, where are crashes occurring with trucks that are parked, and where are kind of these hot spots for crashes. So, I mean, these could be future locations where either the Connecticut DOT or private companies need to start providing parking for truckers to try and prevent these types of crash events from occurring in the future.
So although this is primarily a way for truckers to find parking, what you're saying is this data could then also be extrapolated to figure out where future needs are for truck parking, and hopefully inform, as you mentioned, the state DOT to where they can construct these parking. Is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely. So my goal for this is we already have truck parking existing in the state. How do we optimize that use? We optimize that use through an app to be able to provide real-time information to truckers on where to park. Once we've kind of reached our limit of, all of our spaces are full, then providing, whether it's the DOT or private industry, information on if you're adding new parking, these are the locations where adding more parking is going to be most beneficial based on the supply and demand for parking in the state.
So, this, truck parking information management systems, this is something that's been, implemented in other states. I know there's some, a collection, I believe is around 8 Midwest states got a federal grant on that. And it looks like that you guys have done literature review on these systems. Is this going to be similar to those systems? Are there going to be any key differences? What's the comparison between what you guys are doing and already existing information systems?
So I can add a little bit on this one. So we did the literature review. So as we know, we are at the first phase of this project. So currently we are, as Eric mentioned, we are exploring the existing parking events, where they're occurring, what are their patterns, what are their correlation with crashes. During our literature review, we identified, like you mentioned, so MASTRA is one of the agencies who implemented multi-state truck parking information management system. So we are looking into those as a reference. So in phase 2 of this project, what we'll do, as we mentioned, that we'll start identifying corridor and start implementing that ITS framework. So basically, our plan is to follow what is the best practice in the United States using the truck parking information management system developed by other agencies, and add value to that by adding more information or adding ITS technology that can better identify or better detect truck parking events and provide this information in real time to the truckers.
I also read that, we're talking about truck parking availability in Connecticut, but I read that you guys will also identify parking in neighboring states. So my question about that is, how is that data going to be compiled? Are bordering state DOTs collaborating with you guys on this to provide that data as well?
Until now, we only collected data for Connecticut, and the ATRI data that Eric mentioned is also collected in Connecticut. So we don't have data from neighboring states. We are only focusing on Connecticut, but maybe in future, if we have that data, we can definitely enrich our analysis using the same analytic framework and see whether we can feed this information available. So as Eric mentioned, so our ultimate goal is to optimizing the parking locations. So if you cannot add more parking, so you can provide this information that, okay, there was no parking space available in Connecticut, you can cross Connecticut and park in maybe Massachusetts or in New York. So these information will also be valuable to the truckers in real time, and they can decide based on their driving limits whether they should enter Connecticut or they should take rest before entering Connecticut, based on if there is parking locations available in Connecticut or not. But for now, we don't have this information in our research team.
But long term, this is something that you are looking to include.
Yeah, definitely, yes.
Since we're on the topic of just like that region in general, the news release mentioned that there's a hope that this project will spur further use of what is called intelligent transportation system applications throughout the Northeast. So the first question is, what are intelligent transportation system applications, and then how can they be applied throughout the region?
So the ITS framework that we proposed is, our initial idea is we are going to purchase some cameras that can detect truck parking in real time, and then we can process this data and provide to the truckers in real time that, okay, for example, if at a parking location, if there's 10 parking locations available and 8 of them are already occupied, so there is 2 parking left. So we can provide this information to the truckers in real time. So ITS currently is, you see cameras installed at intersection. These are the device that we called Intelligent Transportation System, where we can collect this data as a video or as a trajectory, and then we can process this data to achieve our research goal or application goal. So for this project, our goal is to use either camera or other kind of sensors to identify what are the parking spots that are currently occupied and how many of them are free, and how we can process this information and provide this information to the truckers in real time. So there's another media that we'll use to disseminate this information, as I mentioned. So we either use develop a truck parking app to provide this information, or we can use the state DMS system to provide this information on the side of the roadway on the variable masses signs.
Yeah, you'll see this type of technology in like parking garages where it'll say, the 3rd floor has 300 available spaces, the 4th floor has 500 available spaces. Is that type of system where we could put a sign out on the interstate that says, 10 miles ahead, there's so many spaces available. We've also talked with several trucking agencies, and there's an interest in exploring, is there an ability to actually reserve a space coming up? And what type of reservation system, what would that look like? Is that something an industry would support, that you can essentially reserve a spot, and then when you get to that station, that spot is reserved for you to be able to park. So we're going to be able to also try and do some surveying of truckers to try and get some feedback on what type of system do they think would benefit them and their ability to move goods across Connecticut.
Sure. And Dr. Sean, you actually touched on something that I wanted to just briefly talk about, which is the methods by which we collect this data. I know that in other states, there has been a mix of technology. You mentioned both of them, which is cameras being one and sensors being another. Based on the research you've done so far, is there a preference on either one? Is there a benefit to one or the other, or is it both good options?
So there is pros and cons for each of the technologies. So when you go into the field and start collecting data, so for example, for cameras, if it's the daytime, you can easily collect this data, but in adverse weather condition or nighttime, it's difficult to collect using those, but sensors can collect those. But sensors has a lot of noise and it is faulty in a lot of conditions. So there is actually pros and cons. So we still haven't decided what kind of technology we'll implement. When we'll get to the point in phase 2, then we'll decide which would be the better option based on the existing use and the lesson learned from the states who has already implemented it. So then we'll decide, okay, this is the technology that we should adopt based on the feedback from other states who has already used this kind of technology to collect parking information.
I also see that so in addition to a possible app to reach truckers with, it also looks like that some other possibilities here include reaching out to truckers through the ELDs. I see was one option, and then the other option is what's called dedicated short range communication units. That I'm not so clear on what that is. Can you kind of explain what that would include?
So in connected and automated vehicles, DSRC is kind of a radio frequency that's emitted out, and then there's receivers in the vehicles that can get things like signal phasing and timing, so if the light is green or red. So it's just a way to kind of broadcast out a message of whether it's the number of spaces or availability or peak times of when parking is available or not available. So it's just a way of broadcasting a message. One of the things that I hope comes out of this project is the ability to standardize some of that messaging that goes out. I don't want to develop an app specific just to Connecticut. So if we can develop a standardized broadcasting message or a standardized database or information structure that could then feed in a national app, whether it's like a Google app that you basically open up your Google Maps and it'll show you where availability is. I think a nationwide solution is really where we need to go and not have a piecemeal patchwork of apps across the country.
Our thanks to Dr. Schoen and Dr. Jackson. They say they're working through the early stages of the app right now, and they hope to start developing it by the summer of next year. Signing off for Landline Magazine's Tyson Fisher, I'm Ashley Blackford, and Landline is back right after this short commercial break.
Today's rising costs affect everyone. Replace your harmonic damper with a genuine Vibertech TVD viscous damper to prevent costly repairs and downtime. Keep your money in your pocket and your truck on the road with Vibertech TVD. Recommended replacement at 500,000 miles or 15,000 hours.
Ready to make more money? Use a better load board. For a limited time, get 50% off Truckstop Load Board Pro. Just go to truckstop.com/go and enter promo code READY2024 when you purchase Load Board Pro. Attention professional drivers, do you owe money to the IRS? Integrity Tax Relief Group frees drivers from IRS trouble. Call for help now, 855-976-4291. That's 855-976-4291.
Landline now, welcome back. Caleb Hammett claimed the winning prize at this year's Shell Rotella SuperRigs. One of his trucks took home the Best of Show title, as well as Best of Lights. I spoke with him recently about the event and his win.
Well, it was Fort Worth, pretty much my backyard, so we was like, heck, we got to go to that one. And yeah, so we showed up and brought 5 trucks and debuted the newest truck that I just got done building, and yeah, it was a good time. Enjoyed it. Good atmosphere, like always, and it was just a fun time.
How do you decide which shows to go to and which shows to put your trucks in?
Honestly, it's kind of random. If it fits in the schedule, it fits in the schedule. If it doesn't, it doesn't. Work comes first and play comes second.
Now, talk to me. You said you took a few trucks there. Talk to me about the truck that won Best of Show.
Okay, so that's the 2019 Glider 389. That's the second truck that was built in memory of my grandpa. I brought the first truck that was built in memory of my grandpa, and they kind of go together. They're the same colors, charcoal gray and viper red. And the other one's named Savvy. This one's named Hoss because my grandpa always used to ask everybody, you savvy, Hoss? So this one's named Hoss. I wanted to go kind of an older school scheme on it, like 379, because I've always loved 379s. So we did the grill surround, 379 grill surround, double square headlights, little pops, glass lights. Just wanted to kind of get a little bit of an old school feel on it. And the inside, it's all spruced up and everything. It's got speakers and everything else in it because you got to have good music while driving down the road. And motor's painted. It's got a C16 1mm with PDI compound turbos. And like walking around the truck, if you're looking at the inside of the hood, inside the interior, all the striping matches inside and out, from the exterior to the interior to the inside of the hood matches the outside of the hood. I wanted to make everything look symmetrical and everything with that truck.
And how did it feel having that truck win? And like you said, you did that in honor of your grandfather?
Yes. It felt awesome, that's a pretty big deal winning Best of Show at SuperRigs. So, I mean, it was an honor to get it. Definitely wasn't expecting it because we was more focused on getting the new truck that we debuted there more prepared and everything else. So, I mean, heck, I got in from Nebraska a week before the show, driving through a hailstorm, got it as clean as I could, and then we started working on the new truck. And yeah, I definitely wasn't expecting that truck to even do anything.
Yeah, I was curious about that. When you go into these shows, do you go in, hoping to win, or do you just go in to have fun and learn?
No, it's more to just chasing the trophy. It's more about the camaraderie, hanging out with everybody, getting to meet new people, seeing old friends that lives halfway across the country that you don't see very often. That's what I get more out of it, is just getting to see everybody and meet new people and getting to show people like my ideals that I have in my head that I put on the trucks and stuff like that.
And you also won Best of Lights?
Best Lights, yes.
Talk to me about that. That was a different truck?
No, that was this truck. That was the truck that won Best of Show. So yeah, it's just got all glass lens lights on it. And yeah, it's all glass, even the underglow.
And talk to me about how do you prepare going into these shows? You said, it was kind of a crazy time beforehand. When you're going in to clean up the trucks, I know Jamie Jones works for Landline Magazine. She's talked to me about the process of, they really look at like every inch of the truck. So how do you prepare to have it shown?
So like to get the truck that won ready, like I said, I literally got in from Nebraska and I went through a hailstorm on the way back and everything. And what I did whenever I got it back to the shop, pulled all the fenders, pulled all the wheels and tires, flipped them around, gone into the wash bay, washed all the underneath of it, had the polishers come in and polish the inners and outers, and really just try to get it as clean as possible.
Now, this isn't the first time you were at SuperRigs, right?
No.
And it's not the first time you won SuperRigs, right?
It's the first time that I've ever won Best of Show at SuperRigs, yes.
Talk to me about was it your first SuperRigs that you claimed a prize?
First SuperRigs, I can't remember what year that was, but it was up in Virginia that year. And that's whenever I took Yastavi, which is the first truck that I built in memory of my grandpa up there. That was a cool experience in itself, like never doing it before or anything like that. And then that truck even making a calendar spot. Like it was a very fun experience. And I was only 21 years old at the time. And it was just awesome.
And now the prize for this year, $10,000 and a calendar spot. Any plans for your winnings?
Put it back into the truck. Use that money to make them cool.
And getting a calendar spot, for people who don't know, what is that like?
Oh, it's so cool. And especially like having my gray truck in there and now this truck, like both trucks being in a shell calendar that was built in memory of my grandpa, like that's the icing on the cake for me. Like that's all I ever wanted, just for both of them trucks to be at least in the same calendar.
And talk to me a little bit, how did you end up getting into trucking?
So, we've had an excavation company. My grandpa started it back in '63. And like growing up, my dad was driving a truck, moving all of our equipment and everything. And like, I would just be sitting there riding with him all the time. And I fell in love with it. And I love moving equipment. I always enjoyed going with my dad and watching him move equipment and riding around with him and everything. And just fell in love with it, and I love it.
And so obviously when you were 21, you got your CDL?
I actually got it at 18.
Oh, wow.
So I was driving at 18 right out of high school, moving all of our machinery around and everything.
And talk to me a little bit about the company and what you guys haul.
So, like I said, my grandpa started it back in '63. Then early 2000s, my dad took it over. And then we just grew. And like whenever I first started driving at 18, we only had 2 heavy haul trucks and 3 rock trucks and moving all of our own equipment and stuff. And now we're up to, I took it over, what would that be? The trucking side back in 2017. And now we're up to 6 heavy hauls and 17 rock trucks. And we primarily haul all of our own equipment, of course. And then we have some other companies that we haul for around the DFW Metroplex area. We supply rock and stuff to various places around the DFW Metroplex area. A lot of sand plants, a lot of landfills, so on and so forth.
What is it about trucking in the industry that you enjoy so much?
I don't know, just like to me, hauling equipment it's a different adventure every day. Like, yeah, it might be the same piece that you moved 5 or 6 times already, but it's always going to be different. The machines that it varies. Like, yeah, it might be the same machine, but it's going to load different no matter what. And then the places that you go into, it's kind of a challenge, especially around the Metroplex area. Everything's getting more tighter and everything like that. And everything's getting tight. So it makes it kind of a challenge to get in and out of places. And that's what I enjoy about it. I enjoy a good challenge and everything.
And how nice is it? I mean, obviously you're working hard, most of the year to take time off and go to these shows.
Well, I don't know about if it's taking off time, because I feel like you work harder at a truck show than you do at actual work. But it's rewarding, especially like the guys that I brought to the show and everything. They enjoy it. Like, it's not just working every day. It's something different. You get to kind of enjoy yourself and like look at the other cool ideals that people has and everything like that. And it's fun.
Yeah, I was curious about that. When you go to these shows, obviously you're focused on your own trucks, but do you walk around and talk to other truck drivers and kind of get some new ideas?
Yeah, so that's what I like doing. Like, after we get everything cleaned and everything and like the final wipe down and everything, like, I like to walk around and look at other people's trucks. Like, I like to talk to people, bounce ideals off their heads and see what their ideals are and like compare ideals and just see their creativity of stuff and everything like that.
Now, what's it like going to these shows, with other truck drivers? You're younger, and I assume, some of these other guys have been in the business for decades and decades. Do you learn a lot from them? What's that like?
Oh, for sure. Like, I've always been raised, like, keep your mouth closed whenever you're around older people and that has more experience. You'll learn a lot more that way.
And have you gone to SuperRigs every year since you've
I didn't get to go to the one up in Chicago, and I didn't get to go to the one in Wyoming. They just didn't work. I don't have anything going that way, so I just couldn't pull the trigger on bouncing up there and bouncing all the way back.
Now, when it comes to the calendar, were you there for like the photo shoot of the truck? I know that there's a lot that goes into those.
Oh, yeah. So I was actually changing out of my wet socks, and Mike, the guy that drives my old gray truck, he called me. He's like, hey, there's a lady from Shell here that needs to see you like right now. So I threw on some dry socks. I'm still in dirty jeans and a wore out T-shirt from cleaning all day, and get there and walk up, and she's like, you want to go take a picture? And I was like, well, of course. And I was like, when do you want to do it? And she was like, right now. I was like, and I looked down, I was like, well, I guess we're going to show the part being dirty and everything. But yeah, that was cool getting to be there and like watch the photo shoot and everything like that. It was a really cool scene, like where they did the pictures and stuff, and it was really cool.
Yeah, I'd interviewed the photographer last year, and I know she doesn't just like walk by and snap a picture. Like, she very much works with the angles of the truck. And what's it like to, see the pictures of the truck? I was looking at some of the, especially the lights. They do those at night. What's it like having those pictures?
It's cool because like they're really high quality pictures, and like you're like, it's really rewarding just getting to look at the pictures, and you're like, yeah, I did that. Like, that's cool.
Were you surprised that you won this year?
Oh, I was so surprised. Like, I looked at my dad and I was like, wait, what? Like, they didn't call my name. And I was very shocked because, like I said, to me, it's just a work truck. Like, it just, like I said, went through a hailstorm 2 weeks before the show and everything. So, like, I was just going to have fun, and it was in the backyard, so might as well go. And it was at Texas Motor Speedway, so definitely got to go to that.
And what's it like? I find it interesting that these show trucks also have to be working trucks, and so that's essentially your office every day. Is that right?
Right. Yes.
And so, what's that like? It's a beautiful office, you could say.
Oh yeah, it's an office with views. Different view every day.
Now, next year, are you going to go to SuperRigs again or just play it by ear?
Going to play it by ear. If it's somewhere where I can get freight to and go, and it fits into the schedule and we're not busy around here, we're going to go. But like I said, work comes first and play comes second.
What advice would you have for truckers who are either going into SuperRigs or any other truck show and showing their truck?
Be proud of what you got. Don't compare your truck to other trucks that's there. Like, be proud of it and be humble. Be willing to take advice from other people and just have fun. Don't get stressed out. Go in there and have fun.
That was Caleb Hammett talking about his recent win at SuperRigs. For Landline Now, I'm Ashley Blackford. Stay tuned for more after this.
Penske owns and operates some of the best-maintained vehicles on the planet. Our used trucks come with a 5-year maintenance report and pre-sale inspection. So if you're in the market for a top-quality pre-owned truck, look no further. Search our inventory today at PenskeUsedTrucks.com.
Control your toll costs and eliminate tolling headaches with Prepass Tolls. Prepass Tolls means toll volume discounts. Just one invoice for all tolls and fewer violations. Call 877-878-5970 or go to Prepass.com.
Since you started, what you've loved about trucking is the freedom. Heading out on your favorite route, a good driving song, and thinking about truck insurance. Well, maybe not that last one. That's why we're here. At OOIDA, we have a full range of truck insurance products, expert advice, and great customer service, helping you get the right coverage for your operation. Go to OOIDA.com, because your job is to drive. Our job is to help with everything else.
Landline Now. Welcome back. As we reported last week, New York's governor has indefinitely postponed the congestion pricing plan that was scheduled to go into effect at the end of the month in New York City's Central Business District. Here to give us some insight into how this happened and what it means more broadly is Bryce Mungen of OOIDA's Washington, D.C. office. Bryce, how are you doing?
Mark, I'm doing good. How about yourself?
Very well, thank you. Before we get into kind of the analysis part of this, just for folks who maybe didn't hear our coverage last week, can you briefly review the congestion pricing plan that had been proposed?
Yes. So prior to it being pulled back, New York City was very much ready to implement this congestion pricing program, which would basically implement tolls on both passenger vehicles, trucks, and anyone else entering into the Central Business District in New York City. And for trucks specifically, if you entered during the peak period, which they defined as 5 a.m. to 9 p.m. on weekdays, you would be charged a $36 toll if you had your fancy little Easy Pass, or $54 if you did not. And for passenger vehicles, it was set to be $15 for that peak period. So pretty significant tolls were set to go into place. The idea or the stated rationale behind this was to, one, reduce congestion, and also, two, help to fund other public transportation improvements.
Now, we had spoken last week with Zach Miller of the Trucking Association of New York about that group's lawsuit against this plan, which is one of many and which is still ongoing. What were the Trucking Association's chief concerns with this proposal?
Yeah, their concerns sound a lot like the concerns that we have when a lot of tolling proposals come up. And a lot of it boils down to truckers, and especially small business truckers, don't have a ton of control over the time where they need to make pickups or deliveries, or a lot of control over the routes they're going to run, especially if they want to get it done in an efficient manner. So while the people implementing these tolls may say that, this will help reduce congestion, people can adjust, and there's all these ways that, things will take care of themselves, for small business truckers, oftentimes it basically amounts to eating the costs of these tolls. And it really places a disproportionate burden on truckers and an unfair burden on truckers relative to, passenger vehicles and other modes of transportation or other vehicles that may have more flexibility in what they're able to do.
Well, and I know one of the other concerns was the fact that, as I understand it, each time a truck went into this tolling zone, they would get charged again, even if it was during the same day.
Right. Yes, correct. And that was the other difference between trucks and rather regular passenger vehicles, is that passenger vehicles would be charged no more than one time. But for trucks, again, you could be charged more than one time per day.
So that's one of several lawsuits against this plan that are currently in court, even though it's been postponed. What are some of the others?
Yes, so there's a couple federal lawsuits. This was something that was interesting, watching this play out. Just politically, you have the state of New Jersey was up in arms about this. Rockland County filed a lawsuit against New York, saying that this would unfairly discriminate against their residents and their drivers. So it's interesting that you have interests or areas that you might typically think be aligned, or they might be on the same page on some of these issues. Certainly not the case with this congestion pricing.
Let's talk a little bit about this postponement. And at this point, we don't know for how long. As I said earlier, it's an indefinite postponement. But did the governor of New York, Kathy Hochul, who made this decision, say why she was postponing this plan?
Yeah, she, I guess, kind of had her come to Jesus moment here when she's talking about the disproportionate effect that this would have on small businesses, concerned about specifically saying truck drivers, police officers, firefighters, and the people who have to work in the city, and her concerns about adding to their financial burden. So it's a huge about face after this was ready to go into effect. Just to hear her basically say all along, a lot of these concerns seem to be on the right track.
So all that said, New York is not the only city that has looked at the concept of congestion pricing. There's a couple of major cities overseas. London, I know, is one of the first that have actually done this, but a number within the United States that are also looking at this. Can you give us some examples of other cities or other jurisdictions that have looked at congestion pricing like what we're seeing in New York?
Right. So a number of places out on the West Coast, Portland, Oregon, Seattle, San Francisco, and Los Angeles have all at least started to look at this congestion price or congestion tolling to reduce traffic and to fund other transportation improvements. So that was the other reaction I had was, is this going to be the canary in the coal mine, or is this going to push back those efforts that we've seen in other states and other cities to implement congestion tolling? And I think certainly in the near term, you would think it has to, when you hear especially the governor of New York finally recognizing and basically admitting to the concerns that truck drivers and other small businesses and other people have had all along about these tolls.
So do we know how far along some of those other cities are in their planning for this? Is this just something they were tossing around, or were they actually developing concrete plans?
I think for the most part, it's certainly not as developed and not as far along as New York was in their planning. So not as immediate of a threat for truck drivers in those areas. So it's tough to tell exactly what the effect will be, but it's certainly not going to help them moving forward.
I know that obviously we've talked a little bit about the financial impact of this, but if this became something that was more broadly adopted, I know that, for example, I think Ohio had done some chatting about doing something like this. But if this became more widespread, what could be the potential effect on the trucking industry?
Yeah, it really, I think, when you look at the way the freight market is now, and from what we hear from our members and from owner operators and small carriers, it's just going to squeeze them even more, because for all the arguments we hear that the marketplace will work, it'll work its way through the system, these costs will be passed on or absorbed in certain ways. We know that the first people to be hit are going to be small business truckers, and it's just going to make it even harder for them to get by, make it even harder for them to do the work that they need to do and maintain their other costs, like simply maintaining your equipment and making sure that everything else you're trying to do is safe. So this is certainly something that I don't think is going to go away, at least as an idea, but something that we're going to be staying on top of.
Well, and certainly while other industries can simply raise prices and pass on costs, truckers aren't actually the ones in control of their cost. That's actually determined by the shippers typically, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's also, it gets back to the bigger picture of, for so long we hear concerns and complaints about low rates, and unfortunately, it seems like there's always going to be some people out there that will take those low rates. So if you're trying to work this into your pricing or trying to wait until someone finally includes this in their pricing, you're going to be waiting a long time.
We have just about 30 seconds left, Bryce.
Mm-hmm.
This was a postponement in New York, not a cancellation of the program.
Sure.
Do we have any idea of whether they will move forward at some point or when they might?
It's not clear, and that's the other interesting thing about this specific case is that there's still this budget hole that New York is going to need to fill. So whether they try and move forward with these tolls or some other tax, we're going to need to be on the lookout because, they're taking on costs and they're going to need to pay for them one way or another.
Okay. Well, Bryce, thank you very much for the information. We sure appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you, Mark.
I've been talking with Bryce Mungen of OOIDA's Washington, D.C. office. And folks, we often talk on the program about contacting your members of Congress in the House and Senate about federal issues, but it is just as important to stay in contact with your state representatives and senators about issues closer to home, and this is a good example of that. You can do that by going to the website fightingfortruckers.com. Thank you for joining us today. I'm Mark Rettig, and this is Landline Now.
Thanks for listening. Be sure to like and subscribe. If you want more content, go to landline.media to get updated news, information, and archived editions of our show. Once again, that's landline.media.
Capital Reman is your leading source for quality remanufactured engines and components. Capital Reman stands ready to serve all OOIDA members to help reduce costly engine repairs or replacement. Visit capitalreman.com today and use code OOIDA10 to save.
Get the most power and performance out of your rig with Howe's Diesel Defender. It provides maximum lubricity and contains specialized IDX4 detergent to clean and prevent deposits and safely removes harmful water. Visit HowesProducts.com for more information.
I'm a dad,
a son,
a husband,
wife,
I'm a writer,
photographer.
I farm.
I'm a veteran.
I love old cars, fishing,
my kids,
chrome,
and I am
a professional truck driver.
And together we are OOIDA.
OOIDA was founded by truckers to stand up and speak on behalf of truckers. We've done that by combining the individual voices of our members into a single, powerful voice. Protecting your interests, defending your rights.
Join us!
Make your voice heard. Join OOIDA, the Owner-Operator Independent Drivers Association. Call 1-800-444-5791 or visit OOIDA.com.